The glass slipped from Benita's trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor like her entire world in that exact moment. She stood frozen in the doorway of the penthouse bedroom she shared with her husband of 3 years, watching as he buried his face in another woman's neck, his hands roaming places that were supposed to be sacred, supposed to be hers alone. The silk sheets she had picked out herself were tangled around their bodies, and rose petals were scattered across the bed. Rose petals. The same romantic gesture Daniel had used on their first anniversary. But it wasn't the affair that destroyed her. No, affairs could be survived. Affairs could be explained away with therapy and tears and promises to do better. What destroyed Benita Okonkwo was when Daniel looked up, saw her standing there with her heart bleeding out onto the floor, and simply said, "Close the door on your way out, Benita. Can't you see I'm busy with my wife?" His wife. The woman beneath him laughed, a cruel, melodic sound that would haunt Benita's nightmares for months to come. She was beautiful in that delicate, porcelain way that Korean actresses always were in the dramas Benita used to love watching. Perfect skin. Perfect hair. Perfect everything. "I told you she'd find out eventually, baby," the woman said, running her manicured fingers through Daniel's hair with sickening familiarity. "Maybe now she'll know her place. The help shouldn't use the main entrance anyway." The help. 3 years of marriage, and this woman was calling her the help. "Sue Min," Daniel chided, but there was laughter in his voice. Actual laughter. "Don't be cruel. Benita has been useful." Useful. Benita finally found her voice, and it came out as a whisper. "I'm your wife, Daniel. We stood before God and our families. We made vows." Daniel finally had the decency to pull away from Sue Min, though he made no move to cover himself. He looked at Benita the way someone might look at a mildly inconvenient stain on their favorite shirt. Annoyed, but not particularly concerned. "About that," he said, reaching for his robe with casual indifference. "You were never really my wife, Benita. Not in any way that matters. Sue Min and I have been engaged since we were children. Our families arranged it. She's the daughter of my father's business partner, and our marriage will merge two of the most powerful construction empires in Asia." "Then why?" Benita's voice cracked. "Why did you marry me?" "Optics, darling." Sue Min sat up, deliberately letting the sheet fall to reveal her perfect figure. She wanted Benita to see. She wanted her to compare. Daniel needed someone different. Someone exotic. The international business community loves diversity these days, and what's more diverse than a beautiful African wife? You photographed so well at all those charity galas. You made Daniel look progressive and modern. You used me, Benita breathed, the reality finally sinking in. This whole time, I was just a prop. A very expensive prop, Daniel agreed, tying his robe. The wedding alone cost me $2 million. But it was worth it. The contracts we landed because of your presence at those events more than made up for it. Something shifted inside Benita in that moment. The tears she expected didn't come. The screaming rage she anticipated never materialized. Instead, there was ice. Cold, calculating, and deadly. A part of her she never knew existed rose up from the depths of her soul, and it was not interested in crying. "You're going to regret this," she said, her voice steady as stone. Daniel and Sue Min exchanged amused glances before bursting into laughter. "Oh, this is precious," Sue Min giggled. "She's threatening us. How adorable." Daniel walked toward Benita slowly, like a predator approaching wounded prey. He stopped inches from her face, and she could smell Sue Min's perfume on his skin. It made her want to vomit. "And what exactly are you going to do, Benita?" he asked softly, dangerously. "You have nothing. No money of your own because I made sure you never needed to work. No connections in Korea because you were always too busy being my arm candy to make real friends. Your visa depends on our marriage, and if I decide to end things badly, you'll be on a plane back to Nigeria before you can blink." He reached out and touched her cheek, almost tenderly. The gesture made her skin crawl. "You're trapped, sweetheart. Accept it. Be a good little side piece and stay in your lane. I'll even increase your allowance. Get yourself something pretty. Take a trip. Just stay out of my way while I marry the woman I actually love. Benita slapped his hand away, and for a brief moment, something dangerous flashed in Daniel's eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that infuriating condescending smile. I want a divorce, she said. You'll get nothing, Daniel replied immediately. My lawyers will bury you. My family owns half the judges in Seoul. You'll leave this marriage with nothing but the clothes on your back and a ruined reputation. I'll make sure everyone knows you were the problem. The crazy foreign wife who couldn't handle her husband's success. Try to fight me, and I'll destroy you completely. Su Min appeared beside Daniel, wrapping herself around him like a snake. Just accept it, sweetie. Some women are meant to be wives. Others are meant to be entertainment. You should be grateful you got to play the role as long as you did. Benita looked at them both, this perfect picture of cruelty and entitlement, and made a decision. She turned and walked out without another word. She didn't grab her jewelry, her clothes, or any of the expensive things Daniel had used to keep her compliant. She walked out with nothing but her purse and the designer dress she was wearing. But she had something far more valuable than any material possession. She had absolutely nothing left to lose. And that made her the most dangerous person in Seoul. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you're going to want to see how Benita transforms from a broken wife into something Daniel Kim never saw coming. The rain started the moment Benita stepped outside, as if the universe itself was crying the tears she couldn't shed. Within minutes, she was soaked through, her expensive dress clinging to her body, her carefully styled hair hanging in wet ropes around her face. She walked. She didn't know where she was going or why. She just knew she couldn't stop moving. If she stopped, she would think. And if she thought, she would shatter into a million pieces. Hours passed in a blur of neon lights and unfamiliar streets. Seoul transformed around her from the glittering towers of Gangnam to increasingly industrial neighborhoods she had never seen before. Daniel had always kept her on a tight leash, always in the acceptable parts of the city. The expensive parts. The safe parts. There was nothing safe about where she was now. Her feet ached. Her designer heels had given her blisters 3 hours ago, but she kept walking. The physical pain was almost a relief. It gave her something to focus on besides the gaping wound where her heart used to be. 3 years, she muttered to herself, stumbling down an empty street. 3 years of my life. I gave up everything. My career. My family. My friends. For what? For what? She screamed the last words into the rain, not caring if anyone heard. In this part of the city, at this hour, there was no one around anyway. Or so she thought. The sound came from somewhere to her left. A cry of pain, muffled but distinct. Then voices, harsh and threatening, speaking rapid Korean. Benita froze. Every instinct told her to keep walking. This wasn't her business. This wasn't her problem. She had enough problems of her own. But she had always been someone who ran toward trouble rather than away from it. Her mother used to say it was her greatest strength and her biggest flaw, all wrapped into one. You're going to get yourself killed one day, her mother had warned her. Your heart is too big for your own good. Maybe tonight was that day. Maybe the universe was giving her an easy out. A way to end the pain without having to make the choice herself. With that morbid thought, Benita followed the sounds down a narrow alley. What she found made her blood run cold. 3 men in expensive suits were beating a 4th man who was on his knees, blood streaming down his face. The victim was young, probably mid-20s, with the kind of pretty boy features that would have made him a K-pop idol in another life. Now those features were swelling and bruising under the assault. Tell us where your brother is, one of the attackers demanded in Korean, grabbing the young man by his hair and yanking his head back. Tell us, and maybe we'll let you live. The young man spat blood at his attacker's face. Go to hell. The attacker wiped his face calmly, then pulled out a knife that gleamed silver in the dim light. Wrong answer. Benita's body moved before her mind could catch up. She grabbed a metal pipe from a pile of construction debris and swung it with all the rage, all the pain, all the betrayal she had been suppressing all night. It connected with the knife wielder's shoulder with a satisfying crack. He howled in pain and dropped the weapon, stumbling away from his victim. The other two attackers spun around, their faces registering shock, then fury. What the hell? One of them snarled. Who is this crazy woman? Benita raised the pipe again, her chest heaving, rain streaming down her face. She probably looked insane. She felt insane. And she absolutely did not care. Walk away, she said. Now. The men looked at each other and laughed. One of them cracked his knuckles and started toward her with a predatory smile. You have no idea what you just interrupted, pretty girl. Now you're going to have to die too. But don't worry. He licked his lips. We'll have some fun first. Benita tightened her grip on the pipe. I've had the worst night of my entire life. I've lost everything I thought I had. And right now, there is nothing I would enjoy more than beating the living hell out of someone who deserves it. So please, please come closer. The man hesitated, something in her eyes giving him pause. But before anyone could move, a gunshot rang out, echoing off the alley walls like thunder. The man approaching Benita crumpled to the ground, a red bloom spreading across his chest. The other two attackers froze, then tried to run. Two more shots, precise and deadly, and they fell as well. Silence descended, broken only by the sound of rain and Benita's ragged breathing. She spun around, pipe still raised, searching for the source of the shots. A man stepped out of the shadows, and the breath left her body entirely. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with jet black hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved by angels or demons. She genuinely couldn't decide which. His eyes were dark and cold, like looking into the depths of a frozen ocean, but there was something burning beneath that ice. Something dangerous. He wore a black suit that fit him like a second skin, probably custom-made, probably worth more than everything Benita had ever owned combined. And he held a gun in his right hand like it was an extension of his body, as natural as a finger or a thumb. He was, without question, the most terrifyingly beautiful man she had ever seen. Well, he said, his deep voice sending shivers down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain. This is unexpected. He walked past her as if she wasn't there, approaching the beaten young man on the ground. He crouched down and spoke in rapid Korean, too fast for Benita's limited understanding to follow. The young man responded weakly, and the stranger's expression flickered with something that might have been relief. You're alive, he said, switching to English. Good. Get up, Min Jun. You've embarrassed me enough for one night. Love you too, brother, Min Jun groaned, struggling to his feet. And for the record, there were 7 of them originally. I handled 4 before these 3 got the jump on me. You handled 4, the stranger repeated flatly. You handled 4, and yet you were about to get your throat cut by the remaining 3. I was lulling them into a false sense of security. You were getting your ass kicked. Potato. Despite the gravity of the situation, Benita felt an almost hysterical urge to laugh. The bickering was so normal, so brotherly, that it felt absurd in this setting surrounded by dead bodies and blood. The stranger seemed to remember her presence. He turned, really looking at her for the first time. His eyes traveled down her soaked dress, her ruined makeup, her trembling hands still clutching the pipe. You saved my brother's life, he said simply. Why? Benita swallowed hard. I don't know. I couldn't walk away. Most people would have. Most people would have run in the opposite direction. I'm not most people. Something shifted in his gaze. Interest. Curiosity. And something else she couldn't quite name. No, he murmured, almost to himself. I don't think you are. Min Jun limped over to stand beside his brother, wiping blood from his split lip. She came out of nowhere, swinging that pipe like a baseball player going for a home run. You should have seen it, Hyung. It was terrifying. And kind of hot. She can hear you, the stranger said dryly. I know. That's why I said it. Minjun grinned at Benita, his swollen face somehow still managing to look charming. Thank you, by the way. For the rescue. That was very cool of you. You're welcome, Benita said, still not lowering the pipe. Can someone please explain what's happening? Who were those men? Who are you? And why do I feel like I've walked into a Korean action movie? The brothers exchanged a look that contained an entire conversation. She's got questions, Minjun said. Fair. She also saved your life, which means we owe her. The stranger pulled out his phone and spoke rapidly in Korean. Within minutes, several black SUVs appeared at the mouth of the alley, and men in suits emerged to clean up the bodies with practiced efficiency. If Benita had any doubts about what world she had stumbled into, they vanished in that moment. The stranger turned back to her. You're soaking wet, clearly having the worst night of your life, and you just witnessed something that most people never see and live to talk about. Let me take you somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. You have my word that no harm will come to you. And why should I trust your word? I don't even know who you are. The stranger smiled, and it transformed his face from coldly beautiful to devastatingly dangerous. My name is Kang Jae-won, he said. And I run this city. Every shadow, every secret, every sin belongs to me. Some people call me a businessman. Others call me a criminal. Most just call me the dragon. The Korean Mafia. The actual Korean Mafia. Benita was standing in an alley with dead bodies being cleaned up around her, being offered help by a mafia boss. Her mother was right. Her heart was definitely going to get her killed. But as she looked at Kang Jae-won, at his hand extended toward her in offering, something inside her shifted. She had spent 3 years being careful. Being proper. Being the perfect wife. And where had that gotten her? Betrayed, humiliated, and alone. Maybe it was time to stop being careful. I'm Benita, she said, finally lowering the pipe. And I think I just stopped caring about what's smart and what isn't. Jae-won's eyes gleamed with approval. Then let me show you a different kind of darkness, Benita. One where you hold the power, not the other way around. She took his hand, and electricity shot up her arm at the contact. From the slight widening of his eyes, he felt it too. One condition, she said. He raised an eyebrow. You're in a position to make conditions. I'm a woman who just saved your brother with a pipe and pure rage. I'm in a position to do whatever I want. Minjun burst out laughing. Oh, I like her. Can we keep her? Jae-won ignored his brother, his attention focused entirely on Benita. What's your condition? Wherever you're taking me, there needs to be hot food and a very large glass of wine. I haven't eaten since breakfast, and I just found out my entire marriage was a lie. I deserve carbs and alcohol. For the first time, a genuine smile crossed Jae-won's face. It was small, barely there, but it softened the hard edges of his features in a way that made Benita's heart skip. I think that can be arranged, he said. And with those words, Benita stepped out of her old life and into something entirely new. Now, if you're enjoying this story so far, drop a comment telling me what you think of Jae-won. Is he the toxic king we've been waiting for, or is he trouble wrapped in a devastatingly handsome package? Let me know your thoughts below. Jae-won took Benita to one of his properties, a stunning Hanok-style mansion hidden in the hills above Seoul. The traditional architecture was breathtaking, all curved roofs and wooden beams, but inside was ultra-modern. Heated floors, smart home technology, and art that probably belonged in museums. This is your house? Benita asked, trying not to gape like a tourist. One of them, Jae-won replied casually. I have properties all over the city. This one is the most secure. Of course it is, Benita muttered. Because everyone has multiple houses and chooses them based on security ratings. Min Jun, who had cleaned up and changed, appeared beside her with a grin. You're funny. I like funny people. Most people who meet my brother are too scared to be funny. I'm too tired to be scared. Check back tomorrow. A woman in a crisp uniform appeared, bowing slightly. She didn't seem remotely surprised by Benita's bedraggled appearance or the late hour. She simply asked what Benita needed and disappeared to make it happen. 20 minutes later, Benita was sitting in a luxurious guest room, wearing dry clothes that fit her perfectly, eating the best kimchi fried rice she'd ever tasted, and drinking wine that probably cost more than her monthly allowance from Daniel. The allowance. She almost laughed at how pathetic that seemed now. She had been so grateful for that money, so careful not to upset Daniel by spending too much. And all along, he had been laughing at her. Keeping her dependent. Keeping her trapped. A knock came at her door. May I? Jaewon's voice came through. It's your house. Surely you don't need permission. He entered anyway, having changed out of his suit into more casual clothes. Dark jeans and a simple black sweater that somehow still managed to look expensive. Without the formal armor, he looked younger. More approachable. But no less dangerous. That danger was in his bones, in the way he moved, in the way his eyes tracked every detail of the room before settling on her. You should be sleeping, he said, taking a seat across from her. So should you. I don't sleep much. Occupational hazard. Right. Because of all the crime bossing. His lips twitched. Something like that. Silence stretched between them, surprisingly comfortable despite everything. You're not going to ask why I was wandering the streets in the rain? Benita asked finally. You don't owe me explanations. No, but I'm going to give you one anyway. Because you saved my life tonight, and because. She paused, not sure how to finish. Because? Because I haven't talked to anyone honestly in 3 years, and I'm tired of pretending. So she told him. Everything. The fairy tale romance with Daniel. The whirlwind proposal. The dream wedding and the move to Seoul. And then the slow realization that something was wrong, followed by the devastating truth she had discovered just hours ago. Jaewon listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. His wife, Benita, repeated the words that still felt like knives. She called herself his wife. And he didn't correct her. He agreed. He said I was useful, like a tool or a piece of furniture. Daniel Kim, Jaewon said slowly. Kim Construction. Benita looked up sharply. You know him? I know everyone in this city. His jaw tightened visibly. I also know his family are the ones who sent those men after my brother tonight. What? The Kim family has been trying to expand their influence into territories that belong to me. They've been making moves against my interests for months. Tonight's attack was a message. They thought if they could take Min Jun, they could use him as leverage. Benita's mind raced to connect the dots. So Daniel isn't just a cheating bastard. He's also a criminal. His family has been laundering money through their construction company for years. They've been building relationships with politicians and police, creating a legitimate face for their illegitimate activities. And you, Benita. He paused, something flickering in his eyes. You were part of that legitimate face. I was camouflage, she realized. An international wife with no connections to the underworld. Perfect for making them look respectable. Exactly. The revelation hit Benita like a physical blow. She had been used in more ways than she ever imagined. Not just as a wife, but as a tool in Daniel's criminal enterprise. I want to destroy him, she whispered, and the words came from somewhere deep inside her, somewhere dark that she had never explored before. I want to take everything he has and watch him burn. Jaewon leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with something that looked almost like approval. Then let me help you. Why would you do that? You don't know me. I know enough. I know you saved my brother without any thought for your own safety. I know your husband's family is already my enemy. And I know. He paused, his gaze dropping to her lips before returning to her eyes. I know that something about you makes me want to watch the whole world burn. The air between them grew thick with tension. Benita felt her heartbeat quicken, her skin flushed despite the cold she had felt earlier. What exactly are you proposing? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Stay here. Let me protect you. And in return, help me bring down the Kim Empire from the inside. You know things about Daniel that no one else knows. His habits, his secrets, his weaknesses. Together, we can destroy him. And what happens after? After, you'll have your freedom. Your revenge. And anything else you want. His eyes held promises that both terrified and thrilled her. Promises of power, of passion, of possibilities she had never allowed herself to consider. You're asking me to join forces with the Korean Mafia, Benita said, testing the words. I'm asking you to join forces with me. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. He stood and walked toward the window, his profile sharp against the city lights. The Mafia is a tool, Benita. A means to an end. It's not who I am. I inherited this empire from my father, who inherited it from his father. I didn't choose this life. But I've made it my own. I've built something powerful. Something that can protect the people I care about and destroy those who deserve it. And you want to add me to the list of people you protect? He turned back to face her. I want to give you the weapons to protect yourself. I don't need a damsel in distress. I need an ally. A partner. Someone who's willing to get their hands dirty. Benita thought about Daniel's sneering face. About Su-min's cruel laughter. About 3 years of her life wasted on people who saw her as nothing but a prop. Deal, she said. Jae-won's smile was sharp and dangerous. Then welcome to my world, Benita Okonkwo. I have a feeling you're going to fit right in. The following weeks were a whirlwind of transformation. Jae-won assembled a team of lawyers who began building an ironclad case against Daniel. Every financial transaction, every suspicious meeting, every piece of evidence was meticulously documented and catalogued. He also provided Benita with something she hadn't even realized she needed, a purpose. I want to learn, she told him one morning over breakfast. Not just about Daniel, but about this world. How it works. How to survive in it. Jae-won studied her for a moment, then nodded. Min-jun will teach you self-defense. I'll teach you everything else. And so her education began. Min-jun turned out to be an excellent teacher, patient and encouraging despite Benita's initial clumsiness. You've got the anger, he said after she landed a particularly vicious punch on the training dummy. That's good. Anger is fuel. But you need to control it. Let it burn cold, not hot. Burn cold. Hot anger makes you sloppy. It makes you do stupid things without thinking. Cold anger is calculated. It plans. It waits. It strikes at exactly the right moment. Benita thought about Daniel, about how desperately she wanted to make him pay. Hot anger, definitely. She took a breath and tried to let it cool. The physical training was exhausting but satisfying. Within weeks, she could hold her own in a basic fight. Within a month, Min-jun declared her not completely hopeless. High praise, Benita laughed. From me? Absolutely. I once told a guy he was mediocre, and he cried. I can't tell if you're joking. Neither can most people. It's part of my charm. Despite their dangerous circumstances, Benita found herself genuinely enjoying Min-jun's company. He was funny, irreverent, and completely unimpressed by his brother's terrifying reputation. He's actually a huge nerd, Min-jun confided one day. He reads philosophy books for fun. Philosophy. For fun. I once caught him watching a documentary about butterflies and getting emotional. Butterflies? Their migration patterns, apparently. Very moving. Don't tell him I told you. He'll have me killed. I thought he doesn't kill family. For this? He might make an exception. The banter was a relief, a lightness that balanced the heaviness of everything else. But it was her time with J1 that truly changed Benita. They spent hours together, often late at night after the business of the day was done. He taught her about the underworld of Seoul, the complex web of power and alliances that kept the city functioning beneath its glittering surface. In return, she told him about her life before Daniel. Growing up in Lagos, Nigeria, the daughter of a university professor and a nurse. Her passion for architecture, the buildings she had designed that still stood in New York's skyline. The dreams she had abandoned for a man who never deserved them. "You gave up everything for love," J1 said one night, something soft entering his usually hard gaze. "That takes courage." "Or stupidity," Benita countered. "No. Never stupidity. You loved with your whole heart. That's rare. That's beautiful. The fault lies entirely with the man who was too blind to see its value." She looked at him, really looked at him. The sharp angles of his face, the shadows in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders that never fully relaxed. "Have you ever loved like that?" she asked. The question hung in the air between them. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. "Once," he finally said. "A long time ago." Her name was Yuna. She was a teacher. Kind, gentle, everything I'm not. She saw something good in me, something I'm not even sure exists. What happened to her? Pain flickered across his features, there and gone so quickly she almost missed it. My enemies wanted to hurt me. She was the best way to do it. They took her to send a message. His voice was flat, emotionless, but Benita could hear the anguish buried beneath. She died because of who I am. Because I was arrogant enough to think I could have a normal life, a normal love. I'm so sorry. Don't be. It taught me an important lesson. In my world, love is a liability. It gets people killed. The moment you care about something, you've given your enemies a weapon to use against you. And yet you care about Minjun. Jae-won's expression softened slightly. Minjun is blood. He's family. And he's frustratingly good at staying alive despite his best efforts to get himself killed. Family doesn't always mean blood, Benita said quietly. My father used to say that family is whoever holds your hand when the world gets dark. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. He died when I was 20. Cancer. He fought it for 2 years, and every single day, my mother held his hand. Even at the end, when he couldn't speak or open his eyes, she held on. That's what love is supposed to be. She didn't realize she was crying until Jae-won reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek. The touch was gentle, almost reverent, completely at odds with the violence she knew he was capable of. I think you and I are more alike than either of us expected, he said softly. Benita didn't pull away. I think you might be right. The tension between them grew with each passing day. Stolen glances that lasted too long. Accidental touches that felt increasingly intentional. Conversations that stretched into dawn because neither wanted to be the one to say goodnight. But they didn't cross the line. Not yet. Benita was technically still married, and Jae-won seemed determined to give her space to heal before adding another complication to her life. Still, the wanting was there. A constant current running beneath every interaction, growing stronger with each passing moment. It came to a head one evening when Benita walked into Jae-won's study to find him standing by the window, his shirt half unbuttoned, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked exhausted in a way she had never seen before. What happened? She asked immediately. Nothing for you to worry about. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. What happened? He turned to face her, and she saw something vulnerable in his eyes. Something raw. Today is the anniversary of Yuna's death, he said quietly. Every year, I spend this day remembering all the ways I failed to protect her. Benita crossed the room without thinking and took the glass from his hand, setting it aside. She cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Her death was not your fault. The people who killed her made that choice. They carry that sin. Not you. If she had never met me, then she would have missed out on being loved by someone extraordinary. Would you erase your time together if you could? Would you wish that she had never known you? His jaw tightened. No. Even knowing how it ended, no. Then stop punishing yourself for loving her. She wouldn't want that. And neither do I. The last 3 words hung between them, loaded with meaning. Jaewon's hands came up to cover hers, warm and strong. You're the first person in years who's talked to me like I'm human and not a monster. Maybe because I see both sides of you. The monster and the man. And maybe I'm not afraid of either. You should be afraid. I'm not a good person, Benita. The things I've done. We're not talking about the past. We're talking about right now. This moment. And right now, all I see is someone who's carrying more pain than anyone should have to carry alone. He leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly. When they opened again, they were blazing with an intensity that stole her breath. I'm trying very hard to be honorable, he said, his voice rough. To give you time, to let you heal. But you make it incredibly difficult when you look at me like that. Like what? Like you want me to stop being honorable. Benita's heart pounded. And what if I do? The words hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation all at once. Jaewon's control visibly wavered. The divorce papers haven't been signed yet. You're still technically. My lawyer called this morning. Daniel is refusing to sign. He's dragging his feet, trying to make this as painful as possible. Something cold and dangerous flickered in Jaewon's eyes. Is he now? Apparently, his lawyers are claiming I was an inadequate wife and deserve nothing from the marriage. They're threatening to countersue for damages. Jaewon's hand dropped from hers, curling into a fist at his side. I'll handle it. No, we'll handle it. Together. Isn't that what partners do? The word partners seemed to crack something in his resolve. He stared at her for a long moment, then pulled out his phone and made a call. 2 hours later, Daniel Kim was dragged from his bed by men in masks. He was taken to a warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul, where he was forced to his knees before Jaewon's imposing figure. Benita stood in the shadows, watching her husband's face cycle through confusion, fear, and finally, pathetic defiance. What is this? Daniel demanded, trying to inject authority into his trembling voice. Do you have any idea who I am? My family will. Your family, Jaewon interrupted coldly, is about to have much bigger problems than their missing heir. He nodded to one of his men, who placed a thick folder in front of Daniel. Inside were photographs, bank statements, recordings, everything needed to document the Kim family's criminal activities. This goes to prosecutors tomorrow morning unless you sign the divorce papers tonight, Jaewon said. Your wife gets everything she's entitled to and you walk away with your freedom. For now. Daniel's face went pale as he flipped through the documents. This is blackmail. No. This is negotiation. There's a difference. You can't do this. My father will destroy you. Your father can certainly try. Jaewon crouched down until his face was inches from Daniel's. But let me tell you something about your father, Daniel. He's a businessman who plays at being a criminal. I am a criminal who plays at being a businessman. Do you understand the difference? Daniel swallowed hard. Your father builds buildings. I destroy empires. Your father makes deals. I make examples. And if you don't sign those papers in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to make an example of you that your father will never forget. Okay. Daniel's composure shattered completely. I'll sign. Just give me a pen. The papers were signed in record time. Daniel's hand shook so badly that his signature was barely legible, but it was legal. Jaewon took the documents and handed them to his lawyer, who had appeared at some point during the confrontation. File these first thing in the morning, he instructed. I want them processed by end of day. Yes, sir. As Daniel was pulled to his feet by Jaewon's men, Benita stepped out of the shadows. She wanted him to see her. She wanted him to know that she had witnessed his humiliation. Daniel's eyes went wide. Benita? You're with him. Surprise, she said flatly. But how? When? Does it matter? You wanted me to stay in my lane, Daniel. Well, I found a new lane. One where I'm not the side chick anymore. One where I matter. You're making a mistake, Daniel said desperately. He's a monster. A killer. He'll destroy you just like he destroys everyone. Benita walked closer, close enough to see the fear swimming in her ex-husband's eyes. You called me nothing, she said softly. You made me feel worthless. You used me as a prop in your little business scheme and then threw me away like garbage. And now you want to warn me about monsters? She laughed bitterly. Sweetheart, I've already met the worst monster I'll ever know. And I was married to him for 3 years. She turned her back on Daniel and walked toward J1, leaving her past behind her forever. Get him out of here, J1 ordered. And tell his father that our next conversation won't be as pleasant if his family continues to interfere with my interests. Daniel was dragged away, his pathetic protests echoing through the warehouse. As the door slammed shut behind him, Benita let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It's done, J1 said, moving to stand beside her. You're free. No, she corrected, turning to face him. It's not done. I'm not free until I've destroyed everything he built. I want his reputation ruined. I want his business in ashes. I want him to feel exactly as small and worthless as he made me feel. J1 studied her face, searching for any sign of hesitation. He found none. That kind of revenge takes time, he said. And it requires getting your hands dirty. I know. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. The woman you were before won't exist anymore. Good. Benita's voice was cold, certain. She was weak. She let people walk all over her. The woman I'm becoming won't make that mistake. J1 reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle despite the violence that still hung in the air around them. You were never weak, he said. You were just waiting for the right moment to show your strength. The drive back to the mansion was quiet, both of them processing the events of the night. When they arrived, J1 walked Benita to her room, but she stopped him before he could leave. Stay, she said. One word, but it contained multitudes. J1's eyes darkened. Benita. I know what I'm asking. I know the complications. I know we should probably wait, take things slow, be reasonable. She stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. But I'm tired of being reasonable. I'm tired of doing what I'm supposed to do. I want to do what I want. And what I want is you. This isn't just tonight, he asked, his voice rough. This isn't just adrenaline and revenge and emotions running high. No. This is me seeing you clearly for the first time. This is me recognizing that you might be the most dangerous man I've ever met, and wanting you anyway. Not despite it. Because of it. J1's restraint snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. He kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning, pulling her against his body with desperate hands. Benita responded with equal fire, years of suppressed passion finally finding an outlet. They stumbled into her room, shedding clothes along the way. J1 picked her up like she weighed nothing, depositing her on the bed before covering her body with his. Tell me if you want me to stop, he breathed against her skin. Tell me at any point, and I will. I don't want you to stop. I want you to make me forget that anyone else ever touched me. His answering growl was primal, possessive, and exactly what she needed. That night, Benita discovered that J1 was not a gentle lover. He was passionate and demanding, drawing responses from her body that she hadn't known she was capable of. But he was also attentive, pausing to check her reactions, adjusting to her rhythms, murmuring praise in Korean and English against her skin. When they finally collapsed together, breathless and tangled in silk sheets, Benita felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. I should warn you, Jae-won said, his arm wrapped around her waist, that I don't share. Whatever this is between us, whatever it becomes, I won't share it with anyone. Is that a threat? It's a promise. And a condition. Benita rolled over to face him, tracing the planes of his chest with her fingertips. I spent 3 years being shared without my knowledge or consent. Trust me, I'm not interested in sharing either. He caught her hand and brought it to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm. Then we understand each other. We understand each other. Outside the window, dawn was beginning to paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. A new day. A new beginning. But their peace wasn't meant to last. Because across the city, Daniel Kim was licking his wounds and plotting his revenge. Now I know you all are glued to your screens right now. If you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below telling me what you think Daniel is planning. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss what happens next because things are about to get even more intense. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest Benita had ever known. She threw herself into her partnership with Jae-won, working alongside his team to systematically dismantle Daniel's world. The evidence they had gathered began to leak, first to business journalists, then to prosecutors. Daniel's reputation started to crumble. Contracts were cancelled. Partners withdrew. The Kim construction stock price plummeted. Soo Min, Daniel's beloved, was photographed fleeing the country with a mysterious man who was decidedly not Daniel. The photographs went viral. She didn't even last a month, Benita observed, scrolling through the headlines with satisfaction. Some love that turned out to be. Rats always flee a sinking ship, Jae-won replied. The real question is what Daniel will do now that he's cornered. They didn't have to wait long to find out. The warning came in the form of a package delivered to the mansion. Inside was a dead rose and a photograph of Benita from years ago, back in New York. On the back was written, "Roses die. So do women who betray their husbands." Benita stared at the photograph, her blood running cold. Jae-won's reaction was immediate and volcanic. Within hours, security at the mansion had tripled, and every street around it was monitored by his men. He's desperate, Jae-won said, pacing his study like a caged tiger. Desperate men do stupid things. He's threatening me, Benita said. Trying to scare me into backing off. Is it working? She looked at him, and her eyes were steel. Not even a little. But Daniel's threats weren't empty. Over the following week, several of Jae-won's businesses were attacked. Warehouses burned. Shipments were intercepted. Men were hospitalized. He's formed an alliance, Min Jun reported grimly after one of his informants checked in. The Chinese Triad. They've been wanting to expand into Korea for years, and Daniel offered them a foothold in exchange for their help taking you down. The Triad, Jae-won repeated, his voice dangerously calm. 2,000 members. Serious firepower. And no respect for Korean territory agreements. The news was a blow. The Triad was a significant threat, one that could challenge even Jae-won's considerable power. But Jae-won didn't become the dragon by backing down from fights. Call a meeting, he ordered. Every lieutenant, every ally, every soldier who owes us loyalty. We prepare for war. The preparations took days. Weapons were distributed. Positions were fortified. Alliances were reconfirmed. Benita watched it all with a mixture of awe and terror. You could leave, Jae-won told her one night as they reviewed battle plans. I have safe houses all over the world. You could disappear until this is over. We've had this conversation before. I'm not leaving you. This is different. This is a war, Benita. People will die. I might, he stopped himself, but she heard the unspoken fear. You might what? She pressed. I might not be able to protect you. If something happens to you because of me. Benita took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. I'm not Yuna, she said firmly. I'm not a gentle teacher who doesn't know how to defend herself. I'm a woman who saved your brother with a pipe. I'm a woman who's been training every day for months. And I'm a woman who would rather die fighting beside you than live knowing I ran away when you needed me. Jae-won closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. You're infuriating, he murmured. And you love me anyway. His eyes flew open. She realized what she had said, the word that had slipped out unbidden. He started. You don't have to say it back. I know it's too soon, I know everything is complicated, He kissed her, cutting off her rambling. I love you, he said against her lips. I've been terrified of admitting it, but I love you. And that's exactly why I can't lose you. Then don't lose me. Win this war, and let's build something together. Something real. Is that what you want? A life with a criminal? A life always looking over your shoulder? I want a life with you. Everything else, we'll figure out. He held her tight, as if he could protect her through sheer force of will. Then let's end this, he said. Once and for all. The attack came 3 nights later. They came in waves, exactly as predicted. Men in black poured through the gates like shadows made flesh, and the mansion became a battlefield. Benita stayed close to Jae-won, her gun steady in her hands. The training Min-jun had drilled into her took over, muscle memory guiding her movements. The first man she shot was reaching for Jae-won's back, a knife gleaming in his hand. She didn't hesitate. She couldn't afford to. Good shot, Jae-won called over the chaos. Thank Min-jun. I'll buy him a drink if we survive this. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Benita lost track of how many men she shot, how many close calls they survived. The mansion's beautiful interior was destroyed, art torn from walls, furniture shattered, blood staining the pristine floors. But Jae-won's people were holding the line. Until Daniel himself appeared. He emerged from the chaos like a nightmare-given form, flanked by triad soldiers, his eyes fixed on Benita with murderous intent. There you are, he said, his voice carrying over the gunfire. My beautiful, treacherous wife. Ex-wife, Benita corrected, leveling her gun at his chest. Very important distinction. You really think you're going to win this? Daniel laughed, a sound that verged on madness. Look around you. My allies outnumber yours 3-1. Your precious dragon is going to die tonight, and then you're coming with me. I'd rather die. That can be arranged. He raised his gun, and time seemed to slow. Benita saw her death in his eyes. Saw the finger tightening on the trigger. Saw the end of everything she had fought for. But then a shot rang out, and it wasn't from Daniel's gun. He stumbled, shock registering on his face as he looked down at the blood blooming across his shoulder. His gun clattered to the floor. Min-jun appeared behind him, weapon smoking. Sorry, am I interrupting? Daniel's triad guards turned to face this new threat, and in that moment of distraction, Jae-won moved. He was a blur of motion, taking down 3 men before they could react. His movements were brutal, efficient, utterly lethal. The remaining triad soldiers, seeing their employer wounded and their numbers decimated, began to retreat. The fight's over, one of them shouted in Mandarin. This isn't worth dying for. Within minutes, it was done. The attackers fled or surrendered. The battle was won. Daniel Kim lay on the floor, bleeding and defeated, surrounded by enemies. Jae-won approached him slowly, retrieving Daniel's fallen weapon. You came into my home, he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. You threatened the woman I love. You allied with foreign criminals and broke every code our world lives by. Please, Daniel whimpered, all his arrogance gone. Please, I'll do anything. I'll leave the country. You'll never see me again. I know I won't. Jae-won raised the gun. Wait, Benita said. Everyone turned to look at her. She walked toward Daniel until she was standing over his pathetic, bleeding form. The man who had made her feel worthless. The man who had stolen 3 years of her life and given her nothing but pain. You called me nothing, she said quietly. You said I was just entertainment. A prop. A side piece. I was wrong, Daniel babbled. I was so wrong, Benita. You're magnificent, you're powerful, you're... I know exactly what I am, she interrupted. I didn't need you to tell me. I just needed you to stop telling me the opposite. She reached out and took the gun from Jaewon's hand. I spent so long wanting you dead, she continued, looking down at her ex-husband. Fantasizing about this moment. And now that it's here. Daniel's eyes were wide with terror. Please. Please, Benita. Now that it's here, I realize that killing you would be too easy. Too quick. You don't deserve a quick end. She handed the gun back to Jaewon. I want him to live, she said. I want him to go to prison for the rest of his life. I want him to sit in a cell and watch his empire crumble. I want him to see me thriving in every news article, every society photo, every whisper about the woman who destroyed him. I want him to die old and alone and forgotten, knowing that I won. Jaewon studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Get him ready for transport, he ordered his men. And make sure the prosecutors know exactly what evidence we're delivering along with him. As Daniel was dragged away, still sobbing and pleading, Benita felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't even known she was carrying. It was over. Finally, truly over. Jaewon pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. You never stop surprising me, he murmured into her hair. I hope I never do. You chose mercy. Even after everything he did to you. Benita shook her head. It wasn't mercy. It was strategy. Death ends the suffering. Life means he has to live with his failures forever. That's not mercy. That's cruelty. Jaewon laughed, the sound startled out of him. You really are perfect for this world. No. I'm perfect for you. The world just gets me as a bonus. He kissed her then, in the middle of his destroyed mansion, surrounded by chaos and blood and victory. And Benita kissed him back. 6 months later, Benita stood before a gathering of Seoul's most elite, no longer the invisible wife of a disgraced businessman, but the formidable partner of the most powerful man in the city. She wore a stunning gown designed by Korea's hottest new fashion house. Diamonds dripped from her ears and throat. But it was the confidence in her bearing that drew every eye. She had rebuilt herself from the ashes of her old life. Her architecture firm was thriving, with projects across Asia and beyond. Her family in Nigeria had been flown out to visit, her mother crying with joy to see her daughter so happy. She had found herself again, stronger and more certain than ever before. And she had found love. Jaewon watched her from across the room, his eyes full of pride and passion. He was wearing a new suit, this one without bloodstains, and he looked like every fantasy she had never dared to dream. She smiled at him, and he smiled back. Min-jun appeared beside her, champagne in hand. You know, when I met you, you were soaking wet and swinging a pipe. Now look at you. Glow up of the century. You're ruining my moment, Benita told him. Ruining moments is what little brothers are for. It's in the job description. Despite herself, she laughed. Over the months, Min-jun had become the brother she never had. Annoying, loyal, and fiercely protective despite his jokes. Your brother is staring at me again, she said. He's always staring at you. It's gross, actually. The man has no chill. Would you prefer he had chill? Min-jun considered this. No. Chill Jaewon would be deeply concerning. I'd think he was plotting something. Jaewon himself materialized beside them, as if summoned by their conversation. Plotting what? Nothing, Min-jun said quickly. I'm going to go find more champagne. Somewhere else. Far away from whatever is about to happen here. He disappeared into the crowd, and Benita laughed. You terrorize him, she said. It's mutual. He took her hand and led her to the balcony, away from the noise and the watching eyes. The city spread out below them, a glittering tapestry of lights and shadows. I have something for you, Jaewon said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He withdrew a small velvet box, and Benita's heart stopped. Before you say anything, he said quickly, this isn't a proposal. Not yet. You've only been divorced for 6 months, and we agreed to take things slow. This is a promise. A commitment. A declaration of intent. He opened the box to reveal a ring, but not a traditional engagement ring. It was a band of black titanium, inlaid with a single line of diamonds and a ruby the color of blood. This was my mother's, he said. She gave it to me before she died and told me to give it to the woman who made me believe in love again. I never thought I'd find her. His voice grew rough. And then you walked into that alley with a pipe and pure rage, and you saved my brother, and you saved me. Benita's eyes were blurring with tears. J1. I love you, Benita Okonkwo. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you refuse to back down from anything. I love that you see the monster in me and love me anyway. I love that you make me want to be better, be more, be worthy of standing beside you. He took the ring from the box and held it out to her. This is my promise that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. Waiting. For as long as it takes. Benita looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the future spreading out before her like an unwritten story. Yes, she said. J1 blinked. Yes. Yes, I'll wear your ring. Yes, I accept your promise. And yes, when you do propose properly, my answer will be yes to that too. His face lit up in a way she had never seen before. Pure, unguarded joy. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that made the city lights blur and the world fade away. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Benita looked at the ring on her hand. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. I have a promise for you too, she said. Tell me. I promise to stand beside you, no matter what comes. I promise to fight with you, plan with you, build with you. I promise that whatever darkness we face, we'll face it together. And I promise. She smiled, a hint of her old mischief appearing. I promise to always be the scariest thing in your life. J1 laughed, pulling her close. That's not a promise. That's just a statement of fact. They stood together on the balcony, watching the city that now belonged to both of them. There would be more challenges ahead, more enemies to face, more battles to fight. The world they lived in was dangerous, and there would always be people who wanted what they had. But they would face it together. Because Benita had learned something important in her journey from side chick to queen. She had learned that the darkest nights lead to the brightest dawns. She had learned that the deepest wounds can become the greatest strengths. And she had learned that love isn't about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone who sees how complete you already are, and choosing to build something even greater together. What are you thinking about? J1 asked. The future, Benita said. Our future. And what do you see? She looked at him, at this dangerous, complicated, utterly devoted man who had become her partner in every sense of the word. Everything, she said. I see everything. And somewhere, in a prison cell on the outskirts of Seoul, Daniel Kim sat in darkness, watching the news coverage of his ex-wife's triumph. Every headline, every photograph, every whisper of her success was a knife in his heart. He had called her nothing. But she had become everything. And that was a mistake he would regret for the rest of his miserable, incarcerated life. The final shot of the evening came as J1 and Benita walked back into the party, hand in hand. The crowd parted before them like water before royalty. To the future, J1 said, raising a glass. To us, Benita corrected. To us, he agreed. And as they drank, as the city sparkled around them, as their enemies cowered and their allies cheered, one thing was perfectly, undeniably clear. This was just the beginning. Thank you all so much for staying with me through this entire story. If this touched your heart, made you feel something, or just gave you the escapism you needed today, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We post stories like this all the time because stories about love, revenge, redemption, and characters who refuse to be defeated are what this community is all about. Drop a comment below telling me what you thought of Benita and Jaewon's story. Do you want to see a part 2? Maybe their wedding, or a new enemy rising, or even a story from Minjun's perspective. Your comments help decide which stories I create next, so make your voice heard. Until next time, remember, you are never the side character in your own story. You are the main event. No matter what anyone else tells you, no matter what circumstances try to convince you, you are worthy of a love that sees you, fights for you, and refuses to let you be anything less than extraordinary. I'll see you in the next video.